Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Gina.
All right, I'm trying to get my camera on. Hello. There we go. And I should be, I don't want that either. Hang on a minute, I'm trying to handle the view. There we go. All right. Hi guys, new computer. So yay, no more mic problems and no more camera problems, I hope. Although I look kind of backwards on here for some reason, but I need to work out those details later. Anyway, well, thanks so much for joining, guys. Today's class, and I will go ahead and record this. It was recording. Gosh, that's so loud. All right, so we're going to record today. Today's class is about for sale by owners. So thanks, guys, for joining. Please do unmute yourself and jump in. As always, I like this to be an interactive class. So let's start with this question. How many of you, and I know there's some, so don't feel any pressure, have either talked to, shown, or have reached out to a for sale by owner in any way, shape, or form? Anybody?
I'm guilty of no.
That's okay.
And I feel like I should because I see them and I haven't. Yeah.
Anybody on Zoom, have you had any experience with for sale by owners in any way?
Yes, I have. I actually had called a couple, and the one gentleman who I spoke with said that he was would potentially pay out 2% if I brought a buyer, but then all of a sudden he changed his mind, and that was the end of that. So there have been a couple like that, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah. So had you had them on some kind of a plan, or you just went straight for the will you work with an agent?
I just called because I actually got the house next door sold. I had investors buy it and they were interested in purchasing the house next door. So that's why I reached out and said, hey, I have a buyer right here, right now that's willing to pay X number of dollars. And he said he had an appraisal done on the home and it appraised for much higher than what they purchased the house next door for. And yeah, he's like, I just not going to do this at this time. I said, okay, fine.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, so today, anybody else have any experiences at all with for sale by owners?
Yes, I have had, I've actually gotten a listen to the for sale by owner, but then I kind of decided to back out of it because it was really, she wanted to, it's like she wanted to help, but then like she was being like very like mean, and she was just being like, it was just like, she was being outrageous. And it was just like, at what cost do I really want my peace disrupted by, she would tell me like, okay, I'm not in a distress to move, but I want to move in 30 days. Then she said, okay, well, we had some offers for her. And she said, well, I need 60 days. And I'm like, okay, well, you just said you need 30 days. And then she's like, well, you said you were going to help me move out my stuff. And I said, I did tell you I would help you, but you told me to wait because you didn't want to show your house to the public. You wanted investors to see it first. So I'm just being obedient to what you told me to do. And it was just like a lot of her being like back and forth and just being absolutely weird. And it was just like, for my first listen, I didn't really want, or like, that was just too much because I didn't know how to handle all the objections and all of the stuff.
And that's a good point. Lots more. I mean, we have objections with our clients, buyers and sellers, no matter what, but in particular with someone like a for sale by owner, and understanding the mindset of a for sale by owner. Like, what's the reason, do you think, the most popular reason that someone would list for sale by owner is because they want to save money? And so they're focused on the money. Chances are, I would say a good amount of for sale by owners are also overpriced. So the good news for us is when they're overpriced, that gives us more of a shot of being able to potentially list it at some point. Because if you start noticing for sale by owners, you will also notice something that happens. If you don't take your opportunity to add them to some type of a drip campaign or reach out to them, you will drive by at some point and see a for sale sign in the yard from an agent. You will. I've made the mistake my own self. I've told this story before, but on my own street, a neighbor up the street from me, maybe 2 years ago now, for sale by owner sign went in the yard. It's not a neighbor that I know. And I kept thinking about calling them every time I drove by, but only when I drove by. You know how that goes. I'm driving by, I'm thinking about it. I don't pick up the phone. I get home, I forget about it. Don't do anything, move on with my day. I will tell you that it wasn't even 10 days when I drove past, and then I see a team here at our office in Canton out there taking pictures and putting the for sale sign in the yard. They didn't know them either. That was because they were marketing to for sale by owners. I did not. And then I have to hear my husband say, see, I told you, you should have called them. And then I missed that opportunity. So don't miss those opportunities, because if you start paying attention out there, you will see most for sale by owners eventually list. But they have to see the value in what we do, and you have to stay at it. So like most things that I talk about, there's a layering effect. There's not just a one and done. Most things aren't just one and done. And so you have to actually have a plan. You have to put them in some type of a system, and then you have to know when you're doing your touches and what kinds of things that you're doing to bring benefit to them. So, because besides the challenge of the money part of it, you have to be able to show a for sale by owner that they actually do need you. So coming from a place of service is so very important. Like, it's how can I help you? Not please do something for me. If you call them and you're just wanting to get in, it sounds self-serving. Unless, of course, in fact, you do have a buyer. So that's a different story. I have a buyer. I tell my buyers I can sell for sale by owners. They give me a name and address and a phone number of a for sale by owner, and I call and say I have a buyer. That's entirely a different thing. That doesn't mean don't use that opportunity to now market to that for sale by owner, but definitely that's a little different conversation than just a straightforward cold call. And how can I get this person to potentially think of using me? So I'm going to jump into a share screen here. All this information is in the drive. So you guys, of course, have access to that. Okay. There we go. All right. Can you guys on Zoom see that? You totally disappeared.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. I can't see any of you. Bear with me. I'm still figuring out this new computer. There are some new little things. So usually you guys stay up there, but you're gone. So I won't see you raising your hand, and I won't see the chat. So just unmute yourself and jump right in. But most of you know this is the Google Drive, and there's some great information in here. I'm first going to pull up this here. So steps. So I want you to know that there are some things that you probably want to do as you start to search for sale by owners. So what ways do you think are best effective to, let's start with this, find for sale by owners? Where do you think you find them? Zillow?
Driving around.
Driving around.
Zillow. I find most of them on Zillow.
Facebook Marketplace.
Awesome. What else? Anything else?
Driving around.
Yeah. So there's a few different sources, and I would say, part of your time blocking for lead generating can be just driving around looking for sale by owners, or as like I said, driving to my own house, driving past the house that's for sale by owner. Just when you're out and about, going anywhere, going on appointments. I mean, we're in neighborhoods probably more than the general public because we're showing houses. Unless you're some socialite who's going and visiting your friends every other day, you're probably not driving around in multiple neighborhoods all the time. But we are. So you have a great advantage while driving around, whether you're driving from point A to point B for your own personal life, but just showing houses. You're in neighborhoods. So make sure you always, I'll tell you some things I have in my car. I always have a clipboard with some paper and a pen and something that I can write on, among other things that I use regularly in real estate: water boots, tape measure, flashlight, things like that. Never know when you have to step out of the car and it's a muddy day. But nonetheless, Driving around is one way. Start making a list. As I've said before, we're spending a lot of our time doing lead generating activities to find new leads. Those new leads, we don't have most of the time all their contact information. With for sale by owners, they're giving it to you. They're giving you their information. You have seen their house. You can go online and see the inside photos. They're publicly giving you their name, phone number, and email address. And therefore, you don't have to cross-reference that with a do not call list. Somebody texted me about that recently. If someone gives you their contact information, then you don't have to check it with the do not call list. Do not call list would mean I'm like pulling out the white pages and just calling. That has to be cross-referenced. That's something entirely different than a for sale by owner who publicly put their name and number out there, or someone who gave you their contact information. But also Zillow and other for sale by owner websites. So you can just Google for sale by owner homes in an area and you're going to get other sites. There's too many to list. So what I would say is, if today is day one for me to put together my plan. So I would say this is something, again, that you're going to time block. Otherwise, you're not going to keep doing it. You won't. You'll forget, the week will get past you. And then you're like, oh crap, I'm due to do a task. You can time block to remember to do the task. You can use your CRM, whether it's Boomtown or Command, to create tasks so that you can remember to do it. This is part of your lead generating time for your day. This is not follow-up. This is lead gen, because you're actually generating new business. So one of the things you can do on multiple sites, including Zillow, is just start looking at the new for sale by owners today in an area and a price range. So once you're started, then you're only looking at new. If you look 5 days a week, then all you need to look at is what's new today. But when you're starting today, you need to look at everything, right? So now I've got everything covered, but then I'm going to search in the last like 5 days or the last 2 days, or depending on how often you're looking. Then you don't have a giant list, guys, all the time. Go ahead.
Can I, in Zillow, can you like search, when you search for homes, can you specifically like search for sale by owners?
Yes.
Can you do that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So they have a whole just for sale by owner list. So you can search for sale by owner, and kind of like when you log in and there's like, it says search for home, or I don't know, it says something in their toolbar, but there's a for sale by owner down tab.
Great.
And then you're going to, select a specific area. Maybe you're going to do a county or just an area. I would not just choose the city that you live. You need to expand that. There's not a lot of listings, and therefore there's not a lot of for sale by owners in the scheme of things. But a couple of things with the for sale by owners, just as a little disclaimer: anyone that you find on any site, no matter where it's at, the first thing that you need to do is go on the MLS and make sure that an agent has not listed it. Because do you think that the for sale by owner called Zillow or reached out to Zillow or went on Zillow and took down their for sale by owner post when they listed with an agent? Maybe, but chances are no. So you are responsible to check the MLS to cross-reference that address to make sure that they did not in fact list with an agent. Because why? We cannot solicit an other agent's listing, and that would be considered solicitation. And ignorance that I didn't know that you were listed is no excuse. So you have to cross-reference it on the MLS. I also like to check the tax record to see, they might, if I'm doing Zillow, it's different than if I'm doing a drive-by. If I'm doing a drive-by and I see a for sale by owner sign, chances are if it had sold, they would take the sign down. They don't know enough to keep the sign up in case the deal falls through. Either way, if it's on Zillow and it's not just listed today or the past 2 days, I'm going to go on the tax site for that county and I'm going to double check to see if the deed recently transferred. So I'm specifically going to the bottom and looking for transfers to see, did this transfer like most recently? Because then it's sold. Saves you a step for a phone call for someone who says, boy, you didn't do your homework. My house sold 3 months ago. That's awkward, Now that doesn't mean that can't be a whole other plan of itself, which is where did you move to and can I help you get there? Nonetheless, I just like to check to see if it's sold so I know what I'm talking about when I call. Let's see. So most, like I said, most for sale signs have the contact information on it. So when you're calling, you have their name, you have their phone number, and you better have their address. It should never be, I was driving around and I saw your house over on Portage Street and I'm calling. No, you need to know the address and why you're calling, especially if you want them to look at you as a professional. So then I take that information each day. And again, maybe you're going to do this 5 days a week for 20 minutes or an hour or whatever. The first time is going to be the longest time because of the fact that you're just getting new data. So if I'm starting today, I'm going to spend an hour because I've got a lot of houses to include. But as I proceed throughout the week, I'm only now looking back as far as the last time I looked. And then you're just adding new. As everything is, it's hard to get it started. And then once you get it rolling, you have a system in place and then you can just add to it. So your plan then should be, where are these people going to go? Well, they're going to go in your database, and your database tools are your CRM, whether you use Command or Boomtown or some other CRM. They need to not just be on a notebook piece of paper. They need to be in a CRM. Yep.
I have a question. So this is where I'm confused. So when do I transfer them from it being a lead to a follow-up source? Where is that? Like, when should you be transferring it to that?
You mean like your tag?
Yeah, like because like once, like, say if I reach out to them and then they answer and then I'm talking to them, do I now move it, since I'm already talking to them, do I move that to a follow-up, or do I leave it?
Depending on the kind of tags that you're using, yeah. So to me, a lead is someone that I haven't spoke to yet. So I've done my research today, and maybe I've got 8 new for sale by owners that I'm going to add to my database. I'm adding them in and I'm tagging them as new lead or for sale by owner lead. I would break it down to a couple tags, and it would be, for sale by owners and then new lead. And then so tomorrow I'm going to start my system and I'm going to start following up. And then once you're in that task oriented follow up, that's when they would switch from a new lead to a follow up source or a nurture lead or whatever is the different tags that you use. Does that make sense? You could also have a tag that says,
yes, that makes sense.
Talk to, not talk to. You know what I mean? Like, I identify my Mets and not Mets too, like for leads that I have not shown houses to versus ones I have shown houses to. So I have tags that say Met and not Met. So you can have multiple tags. So that way you can break down, when this database grows, you want to be able to filter that list down so you know who your target is that day. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So then now I'm going to add them into my database, and then I'm going to start to set them up on a drip. So chances are I do have their email address as well. Chances are. Now, probably on a for sale by owner sign in somebody's yard, they might just put their phone number, maybe not their email address. If it's not posted there and it's not on Zillow, if you found it on a website, chances are you have an email address as well. You can just get them set up in some time of a drip. But listen, guys, you have to have a special drip for special people. You can't just put them in any old drip. They have to be set up to get information from you about the fact that they're for sale by owner and what can I do, which we're going to dive into here in a minute. So part of that drip is also setting up tasks or to-dos for yourself. Okay, so today I'm added them all in, and now later today or tomorrow, I'm going to start those 10 people on the new rotation of calls, texts, and emails, in addition to possibly an email drip campaign. I'm going to call, and then I'm going to make a note. And then from that phone call, I'm going to determine when the next call is going to be, and I'm going to set it to do. There's no other way for you guys to remember who you need to call when, once you start getting busy, if you don't set yourself tasks and to-dos. You don't think about it again. I don't have room in my head for all this stuff. That's why I time block like a nut, because I don't have any more room upstairs to try to remember everybody and everything all the time. I don't want to remember it. I have more important things to be thinking about. So that's why I put it down in my calendar, or I have constant to-dos and tasks in my CRM that reminds me what to do. It's very easy when you have a very small handful of clients to manage them and not forget somebody. But when that starts to grow, I promise you, you will. And I hope that that's what happens for all of us, because that's what we're doing here, right? So start your task and start good habits with that now. So then we have follow up with our scripts, which we're going to dig into here in a second. And then making sure that one of the very first things, honestly, that I email, and Mary demonstrated this from our Dominate Your Week yesterday. She told us, for those of us who were here, and then in the chat yesterday, one of the first things that she did was talk to them about, did you know that you have state required documents? And that person said, no, I don't. I'm selling my house as is. Well, the fact that you're selling as is has nothing to do with your required documents, lead-based payment, property disclosure. And so sending those or dropping them off, like in Mary's case, was greatly helpful to that person who's a potential client, and it came from a place of service. So let me go back. In designs, I just created some generic marketing materials. So this came right from the designs in Command. There's actually a template that I picked, and it wasn't anything to do with for sale by owner. I don't know what it was about, but if you're in designs, all of this is clickable, everything. The photos are clickable, the information's clickable. You can add your information, you can add the company logo. All of this, I didn't go customizing this. I just wanted you to see an example here. So I could, for sale by owner, look at their area, come up with the new listing stats and information, and then just put all that stuff on here. Average days on market, all of those things I'm going to customize on this flyer for my specific target person. And then you just save that template and then create, go ahead and adjust it. And then you can email that out. That's one of your emails. Or you can mail it. For that matter, you can do a pop by and hand it to them. So this is just to give you an example of something that you can easily, and I of course didn't do the research because I was just using this as an example, but creating this is not the hard part. It's just getting your stats, which you're just going to go on the MLS and you can pull information on a particular area that for sale by owner is in, let's say Fairlawn, and it's 199,000. I go on the MLS and I pull up other houses in Fairlawn and I rate. Sorry, guys, somebody's cheering in the other office. In any case, I'm going to pull those stats on the MLS and then I'm going to fill in the blanks. And then I'm going to save it and then I'm going to do it again for the next one. And I'm going to fill in the blanks. And then you can quickly customize this. And that's a great bit of information that you can, again, email. You can obviously put it in a smart plan to have it automatically be there to go to them when you want it to. Maybe you're not ready to send it yet. Maybe you're going to send it after you make your phone call. You're going to determine that. Go ahead.
Gina, how do you find the new, how do you find where it's like the pending listings and active? Like, where do you go in
all on the MLS? All on the MLS. You're going to do a residential search and you're going to select your area. You're going to select your price point. I don't narrow it down to bedrooms, baths, and all that. I'm really just looking at basic area, not street, not neighborhood. I'm going to narrow it down to, like I said, if it's Fairlawn, I'm going to use all of Fairlawn and I'm going to average on the MLS and I'm going to check actives, contingents, and closed in the past however many days I want to go back. So past 3 months, let's say. And then it's going to pull a report for me. And that's going to give me all that information, especially then if you hit search and then the bottom, you're going to go to results on the MLS and then you're going to get a list. And then from that list, you're going to check the box that checks all of them. And then you go to quick CMA. And when you go to quick CMA, it's gonna plug out all these numbers and averages. For that matter, you can email them that report. I just did that the other day. I forget what class we were doing, but I showed you guys how to do a quick CMA.
Yeah, we were in last
Yeah.
week.
Yep. And so that's what I'm talking about. So like you can get the stats from that to fill this document out, this flyer, or you can even just send them that quick CMA. You can do that. It's a PDF you can download, and you can, again, email it. You can physically mail it, but you want to pace yourself, guys, with the for sale by owner. If you give them everything immediately, then there's nothing else to give. You have to pace it throughout the time period, if that makes sense. So like there's an 8-week call plan for sale by owners. Now, mind you, when that 8-week call plan was created, it was in a market when houses weren't selling as fast as they are currently. So I would escalate that a little bit to more of a 4-week plan and consolidate a couple of those calls into one, if that makes sense, just because chances are it could potentially sell relatively quickly. I also we're going to get into the different calls here, but I also wanted to pull this up. So Mark was nice enough to get this to me. Mary, for those of you who are watching in the chat, she had commented about something that Mark had given her to bring to her appointment with that for sale by owner to kind of give her the property disclosure and stuff. But this says 180 things a realtor does. So another thing that you have a challenge with for sale by owners are that they think they can do this job themselves, and they can. We can all do lots of things for ourselves. We can all mow our own grass. We can all wash our own car, not go drive through someplace. It all depends on the services that you want and need for your own personal life to pay for. In the state of Ohio and probably other states, you can sell your house yourself. You don't have to have a professional to do it. You don't have to have a lawyer to do it. You can go online for free or go to a title company, and they will happily give you contracts that are generic to write up your own contract. You can. I don't know the exact stats, but it's a huge percentage, and I'm sure it changes regularly, of deals that fall through that were for sale by owner. Why? Because they're not the professional. They're not. So neither one of them really know, when they're relying on each other to know, and they don't. Isn't it awkward when you go show a house and the seller's home? It's awkward for the seller too to come home early and see the buyer's still at their house. It's just awkward. And so why would that be any less awkward when they're showing their house themselves? I mean, is the buyer really going to be truthful and authentic when they're walking through the house with the seller and really thinking about, do I like this house? Are they going to comfortably open drawers and closets and things like that? Some buyers are really uncomfortable doing that even when we show it to them, let alone if the seller's there. So one of the big things that for sale by owners don't count on is this. There are buyers that will never call them that might be the buyer for their house just because they're for sale by owner. So there's a script right there, guys. Did you know, Mr. For sale by owner, that there's a giant group of buyers that would never even call you because that's how uncomfortable they are talking directly to the seller? They can't really look at your house with you standing there. They cannot. And they're not going to give you true feedback. So that's the other challenge, is this. The for sale by owner keeps getting encouraged because everybody loves my house. Everybody loves my house. Do they? Do they? Yeah, exactly. Because where's your offers, right? So most people actually want to be nice. I have found there's a lot of jerks out there in the world, but I think most people actually do want to be nice. And so you're not going to say to somebody, your house smells like dog. You're not going to say, I don't like this size of this room. You're probably just going to smile and nod and walk around and then avoid them later. It doesn't work for my family, kind of a thing. So having those middlemen, which are real estate agents, helps to really get to the bottom of, does this buyer really want the house? And there's just some other challenges for sellers that are selling it themselves, which we're going to get into when we talk about the scripts. But a really huge thing is this: they don't really know what an agent does. I hear this all the time from for sale by owners. I've bought and sold 5, 6 houses in the past 10 years, and I've never used an agent. Well, they must not know what we do then. Because one of the big things is we can actually net them more money. And if they're already paying a buyer's agent 2 or 3% commission, then we're really only challenged on that other 2-3% commission that they're going to pay for the listing side of it. In any case, here's just a list of the different things that we do as agents, which I think is genius to be able to give them. So pre-listing activities. Here's 20 things that we do as agents before we ever even list your house. And by the way, Mr. Seller, did you know you don't pay me if the house doesn't actually close? So we aren't collecting a fee up front for doing a job. We work for free till this deal closes. So don't you think that we have a vested interest in making sure that this transaction goes smoothly and that we get you the most for your house with the least amount of issues? Because again, we put all this time and energy into this listing, and sometimes money. We've got lock boxes, we've got for sale signs. Maybe we marketed the house on social media and boosted it. We paid for certain different advertisings. Maybe we paid for professional photography, drone shots, all these things. Sometimes in some cases, we paid a stager to come over. So why wouldn't we want to do all that we can for you to service this listing and get you the most for your house? But here's a great list of the things that we do, starting with, of course, I don't want to do that. What did I touch? Sorry, guys. There we go. The things that we do even before the appointment, then the listing presentation. Then once the property is listed and under contract, the things that we do. I mean, just on and on and on, and I'm not going to waste your time reading through them all, but just entering stuff on the social media, enter the listing in the MLS. I mean, all of these things are things that we do even before the house is sold. And then negotiating the contract, negotiating repairs, making sure that the title company and the lender and everybody gets all the things. So you guys might be getting very wide-eyed and think, holy crap, do we really do all these things? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. This is just the combination of the possible things that we could have to do in a transaction when we're the listing agent. We're coordinating inspections. We're sometimes present at the inspection. We're negotiating repairs. We're coordinating and scheduling. And sometimes we have issues with the appraisal that we have to deal with. Closing preparations, follow up after closing. I mean, there's a million things that we do. Well, 181 of them right here. That's a great form right here in the drive to bring along on an appointment. Perhaps this wouldn't just be for sale by owners. Honestly, that's a great document to put in your listing packet too, just to show them all the things that we're going to do to service them. Pick some of those things out of there that you know that you've done and create a nice little flyer for your marketing packet to add in there. It doesn't just have to be this. You can brand that and add all kinds of things on there from that list that you know that we do and that you have done. And just a series of other things like that that you can, again, put in a smart plan, go to the house with, and, or of course, just email that to them. Questions about that before I move on to the calls and follow up? The only other one I have, and I couldn't get it to open earlier, so let's see if we can get it to open. This one was tips on getting your house ready. Oh, there it is. So again, I just created this in Designs in Command. No big deal, totally generic. Was a template. I changed the photos to pertain to what I was, what the topic of my form was, which is tips on getting your house ready to list. It's not that it's not self-explanatory. It's just another thing that you can add to a packet, or that you can put in the mail to them, or you can put it in a smart plan. All right, let me find call one. All right. So here is just an example of the calls. So let's talk about that before we jump into those. So there's calls and emails, and of course, sometimes text messages. I would say this, as like with anything, I do all three. We teach a class called the 5x5 and the 3x3x3, and it's talking about the different things that you're going to be doing. So you're going to call, text, and email, call, text, and email, call, text, and email for 3 days. That's someone who's not responding to you, of course. So the reason that you do all three isn't because you're a crazy stalker and you're trying to be pushy. It's because you're trying to find out what is their best way of communication. I'll say this, if you get somebody on the phone, ask them. If they respond to a text, ask them, how do you prefer to communicate? Somebody who doesn't want to pick up the phone might say, you know what, you're going to get a better answer from me if you just text. So then you know, and you're going to make a note about that. So you've gathered your information. I've got my list and I'm continuing to add to it. I've got my systems in place. And let me just say this, guys, you're never ready to say today is the day. Do not feel like you have to have every single thing perfectly in place. You will get in your own way and then you'll never do this. You'll never do it. You just have to have a few things ready to go and then you can get started. Understand, like everything, it's a mindset thing though. Nothing that you do is ever a waste of time. It doesn't matter if they never call you back. It's just part of the path and it's part of the experience. So understanding this, they don't owe you anything. So what? So I called them 5 times and I mailed them stuff, and darn it, how frustrating they're not calling me back. What? How dare you think that they owe you something? I mean, I could have the same neighbor kid knock on my door 25 times to try to sell me candy. If we're never home, it's not my fault, right? Like, what makes us get this attitude that we have to blame the client because they don't respond? It's not, and they're not the client really, they're a customer. It's not their responsibility to make you happy. It's your responsibility to keep working hard and show them that you're coming from a place of service, that if it's a big if they should ever want to work with an agent, all I'm trying to do is say, I hope it's me. So what can I do to earn your business if you should decide to ever list with an agent? That is your goal, guys. It is not just let me get in that house. Of course, that's one way of getting them to work with you, but maybe they'll never list with an agent. And there are people that will say that mean it, and there are people that say that who will bend. Circumstances change. So today they've just listed their house for sale by owner and they're not in a big hurry. They haven't found a house yet. In 3 weeks from now, they found the house of their dreams and that seller won't do a contingency, but the house hasn't sold. And the seller's kind of like, hey, when you sell your house, make us an offer. Things have changed for them now. Now they've got to get their house listed with an agent and get it sold so they can buy the house of their dreams and not lose it. So things change that we don't know about. So that same person who says, I will never, sometimes does because things have changed for them. So what I would say is, again, your job is to get in front of them in some kind of a way, whether that's in person or over the phone, and start to develop a connection and a relationship that all you're asking from them is one thing. One, if and when you should ever decide to work with an agent, can I please just be considered? That's it. That is it. Every single time, that is it. That is your script. It can never sound pushy if all you're asking someone to do is consider you. Will you please just consider me if and when you ever should decide to list with an agent? And then, you know, what can they say other than, well, my sister's a real estate agent and obviously I'd have to list with her. Unless that's the case. Otherwise, you should be able to have a shot at it. Questions about that before I dive into the calls? Any other questions or concerns that I can go into before we dive into the calls?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Jermaine mentioned earlier that she backed out because the client was crazy.
Yeah.
What are your options if you go on the contract with a listing contract? What are your options to back out? Like, how do you back out?
Well, I mean, she hadn't gotten them in a contract yet.
But if you do,
So you're
and
saying,
then
how do you
find out
fire a
they-
seller? Is that what you mean? How do you fire a seller?
yes.
I mean, you are in a listing contract with them, so chances are if you're feeling a certain kind of way, so are they. And then you just do a withdraw. There's a status change form, which is to withdraw the listing.
But let's say they don't feel like that, and only you, maybe, I don't know, it's a weirdo, and you want to just back out because you
I
don't
mean,
feel safe.
I'll tell you this, in my 25 years, other than a buyer who I said, I've had enough, I'm not showing you any more houses because this or that, or they keep voiding contracts or something, I've never fired a seller.
Okay.
I mean, yes, have I had sellers that have screamed at me, blamed me, don't know how to handle situations, they work to their own detriment? Yes, obviously. When a transaction gets under a contract and then falls through, these things happen. Here's the thing I'll say though, is I've invested so much of my time. I am the kind of a person who I dig my claws in and I'm not going to let go. I've spent a lot of time on this deal and I'm going to, my technique is not see ya. My technique is I'm going to be professional and I'm going to figure out the things that I'm a problem solver. So I'm figuring out how can I handle this? And even if they're not nice to me, I don't care. I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound really harsh. Grow a thick skin. You are in sales and people aren't always going to be nice, and it makes you stronger, right? That's what makes us stronger. So I've learned how to deal with it. And sometimes I have said, and I didn't even fire them. I've had to say to a seller, guess what, buddy? You don't get to talk to me like that. I don't appreciate it. I'm going to end this call. That doesn't mean I'm firing you. That just means let's have a mutual understanding. You don't get to talk to me that way. So, I mean, I'm going to push through, I guess, but you do have the right to sign a release. And trust me, if a seller has an agent coming to them saying, I want to withdraw the listing, they aren't going to force you to stay listed.
Okay.
It's the opposite.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? All right. So I've got my list. I keep updating my list. I keep adding new people, whether it's from Zillow or other for sale by owner websites, from drive-bys, whatever. First step, getting my CRM ready to go to start adding these people in with all their contact information. Then look them up on the MLS, look them up on the tax record, make sure they haven't sold. And now I'm going to start making my calls. So understanding, again, your mindset is, what is my objection for today's call? Your goal of the first call isn't necessarily to get an appointment. It depends on where the conversation goes, though. I'm not suggesting that if you can't get in the door, the first call, go for it. But it depends on where the call goes, especially if this person just went on, they like to call it on the market, but they just put their for sale by owner on the internet today. So what do you think your chances are of getting them to list with you today when they just went for sale by owner today? No. So what I would suggest is you start backpedaling it to ones that have been for sale by owner for quite some time. You're going to weed a lot of those out because they will have sold or they would have listed, and you'll start to see what I mean by how for sale by owners tend to list with someone, because you're going to see them when you start cross-referencing those addresses. So let's just say this particular person's a couple days to a week old, and then you're calling. So it's just, hello, my name is, and I'm with Keller Williams, whichever market center that you are with. I understand that you're selling your home for sale by owner or by yourself. And I just wanted to let you know, I would love to drop off some helpful information in the mail to you today to go over some tips on how to prepare your home, different steps in the selling process. Please keep an eye out for that in the mail. That's one thing. This is not asking their permission. This is, I'm following up because I did drop this in the mail. That conversation goes a whole lot different than, can I send you stuff? It's, I already did. So I'll say this, if you already did, you better be prepared to have already done. Like, this is not a cheap endeavor when you're going to do it like this. So it's totally up to you. I understand that a lot of you are brand new and you don't have the money to be spending on postage and mailings for every single, person that is for sale by owner. Just depends on where you put your budget, if you have one for real estate. So please don't feel pressured. Do this even if you say, can I email it to you? It's better to do something than nothing. But the plan is in place that I've already dropped this in the mail. So I wanted you to let you know to keep an eye out for it. That's a very different spin on the calls they're getting from most other agents. By the way, it includes information that you're going to need to have on lead-based paint disclosure, the state of Ohio property disclosure, and talking about stuff about selling your house on your own. And I just wanted to introduce myself. I know I'm paraphrasing. And that I'm an agent in the area, kind of a thing. Please reach out if you need anything. I want to be a resource. So you see nowhere in this first touch does it say, will you work with me or work with an agent? It doesn't say that. The reason I have this as first call / email is because I'm calling and I'm emailing this. Both. This is an email. And on the email, I have my signature, my phone number, and my website. So this is my website, gina.findmynexthouse.com. That's my website. So in the email, I make sure that's a clickable link. So that's the first call. You see how it rolls. And I'm putting basically the same exact information in an email too, if I have their email address. Questions about that?
This is just an administrative question, but when you say drop in the email, are we allowed to put it in there? I mean, drop in the mail. Are we allowed to put it in their mailbox, or does it have to be with postage?
No, you can't put anything in someone's mailbox. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to mail it.
Okay, thank you.
So but you bring up a good point. Do you think that you're allowed to put things in someone's, I know it sounds crazy, but there are some people that still have newspaper mailboxes. Are you allowed to put something in someone's newspaper mailbox? The answer is no. You are absolutely not permitted to touch someone's mailbox at all. You cannot hang a door hanger on a mailbox. If you didn't know that, you absolutely cannot. Do not touch someone's mailbox. If you have a door hanger, you hang it on the door, unless the neighborhood says no soliciting. So either you're going to physically mail it with a stamp, or you're going to drop it by, in like a plastic thing to hang on their door, or you're going to knock on their door and give it to them, or you're just going to email it and call. So it could be a combination of all things. In that first mailing, though, of course, is the disclosures. But again, I would rather you do something than nothing. It's certainly as effective as you just email it to them too. Hey, I'm following up to make sure that you got that. So now I've got them in there. I've made my note. I've called. If they don't answer, do I leave a voicemail?
Yes. No.
Say no, you don't want to do it.
Yes, no. What do you guys think? Anybody on Zoom?
I would.
I would.
Wouldn't, so you would have an excuse to call again.
So yes. So here's what I do. The first time I call, I would not leave a voicemail. The second time I call, I would. So I'm going to call them back in 3 hours, because you're also trying to figure out, when do people answer their phone? Do they answer in the morning or do they answer in the evening? So I'm going to call them back the opposite time to see if I can get them to answer. Here's the thing, guys. If someone has a for sale by owner and they know their phone number's out there, they don't know you're an agent. They're probably going to answer their phone. They've got people calling them about seeing their house. So chances are they absolutely are going to answer. So the first time I call, I do not leave a message, but the second time I do. So you're not all completely wrong. It's just the first time I'm not, the second time I am. So if I call back and they don't answer, then I'm going to say blah, blah, blah. Okay. Just because the chances are they'll answer the second time, and you can't call, leave a message, and then call back 3 hours later, right? That would be a little bit pushy and weird. So if I didn't leave a message, I can call back and give myself a second shot at it. Call number 2. So, or again, email. I wanted to see if you received my information, and then let's have a conversation about that. I would also say there's nothing wrong with sending your listing packet in a PDF. Have your listing marketing packet, put that in a PDF. I'm sure that you're very busy showing your house to buyers. And I was wondering how the showings have been going. Out of curiosity, what are you hoping, out of curiosity, where are you hoping to move when your house sells? So I wrote this, and I always add words like out of curiosity, or phrases like out of curiosity. It cushions the blow of the question when you're trying to sound kind of innocent by saying out of curiosity. If this for sale by owner has sold to a buyer and they are a buyer, where do you think they're going? Do you think they're selling their house and going to go rent or move out of state every single time? No. Chances are, even if I never ever get to see their house, can I pick them up as a buyer? Can I pick up a for sale by owner as a buyer? Again, like I've said, people who come to open house are buyers raising their hand. For sale by owners are sellers raising their hand, but they're also buyers. 9 times out of 10, if you're selling, you're buying. And maybe you haven't bought yet because you haven't sold yet. You don't know. So maybe your objective for calling them is to say, where are you going and can I help you get there? I'm not interested in listing your house like all these other agents that have been hounding you. I love a chance, but more importantly, can I help you buy a house? What are you looking for? How can I set you up in a search? And go through the LP Mama script with them. So that's a target. So in each of these calls, guys, go in there and look at them and highlight the objective of this call. The objective of this call is to follow up from the stuff that you mailed, but the highlight in this call is, can I work with you as a buyer's agent? That's my call. And then every time I hang up, I always ask, would it be okay if I check back in? When they give you permission to check back in, they are way more likely to receive your phone call in a positive way because they know they gave you permission. I'm not going to read through every single one, but I just wanted to kind of go through some of them so that you guys are understanding what's in here. As I said, though, this 8-week time crunch might shrink a little bit into consolidation because of the fact that houses are selling faster. And then here's call 3, call 4. Each of these have their own little hot topic. In call 3 here, have you received any offers yet? How's that going? Then you have to let them talk. They're going to fill in some of the blanks and situations. I'll tell you a big challenge that a lot of for sale by owners have is I have to keep leaving work and going home and showing my house. That's a problem. That's why they pay agents to do that. Or I have kids and dogs that I have to have my spouse get out of the house so I can show it. That's a challenge for people. Oh my gosh, my phone never stops ringing. I have to keep showing my house constantly and no one's writing an offer. That wears on people eventually. So those are things that you're going to start to hear in these calls as you start going through. And again, this one's asking them, are they working with other agents? Which then leads to some other things about how you can get through the challenges of the commission, which is call number 5 here. So if you're already willing to pay 3% to a buyer's agent, we're only talking about the other 3%. So now I only have to try to convince you to spend 3% more, not 6, 3 more. It's a lot easier. And then if I can prove to you how agents can actually market your home and get you more for the house, we've got that other 3% covered. And that's where the CMA part comes in and all those other things. And again, in here, there's a call because I don't want to keep you guys longer than 12. One of the calls is here, open house. Can I host an open for you? And then you go over explaining to them, oops, that's not, come on, where's call 8? That might have been it. Oop. Jesus, oh my goodness. Sorry guys, just getting used to this screen. There's a reason that that came with a stylist. I suppose I should start using it. Anyway, okay, let's just open it up for questions. All of this is in the Google Drive. Let me do stop share. All right, lots of you on here. So let's take the last 5 minutes for questions, thoughts. Who's going to pull the trigger and make this start to happen? I can't wait to hear updates every Monday at Dominate Your Week. Can you see how it's beneficial to have a plan and consistent? It doesn't matter by call 4 if they sold the house. It was good practice for you. You got an opportunity. All we're trying to do is get opportunities. If they were going to sell on their own without you and you never called them, you never had the opportunity. I would rather lose the game but have the opportunity to play than not to play at all, right? So we have to get okay with losing. We have to. Gary Keller says we fail our way to success. Hear me when I say that is the truth. So it is okay. I know I'm guilty of it. We live in a fluffy world and our children are raised in a fluffy way that people don't have a thick skin to understand and deal with disappointment. But I'm here to tell you, disappointment will help you grow. It's okay. When you get through it, and then it does make you stronger. So lots of no's is not a big deal. If everyone hangs up on me and says, no, 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 you find your yes in there some point if you keep pushing forward. It's okay. It'll make you stronger. So who's going to enforce a plan? That's what I want to know.
I am. This is Kim. I have two to call that I saw over a week ago now, and I know they're still up and they're not listed anywhere publicly. Okay. They're just signs in the yard. And I'm just, when you said consolidate the 8 steps, like what would the first 2 be then? Like just offering the RPD?
Yes, the first 2 would be, how are things going? Did you know that you're required to have these documents? And I would love to share them with you. I'm just a local expert if you have any questions. One of the calls also says this, guys. Hey, Mr. Seller, did you know that if you did bring your own buyer for a small fee, I could write and negotiate the contract for you? I don't even need to list it. You can pay me just to negotiate the contract and keep it together and hold it till closing. You can offer that service.
Okay.
So
that's good.
It just depends on how long. I would tweak, look at those topics of each of those calls, and depending on the for sale by owner and how long they've been there would be depending on how I piece together those calls, right? String them together in regards to importance to you. And if I don't want to host a for sale by owner open, I'm not going to offer that thing. It might just be informational on the first call and combine 2 things. The next call might go a little deeper. And then you're going to at some point need to ask, hey, just out of curiosity, do you think that you'll ever list with an agent? What's your time frame here?
That's good.
Don't be afraid to ask that question. And then you'll get some kind of an answer. And again, then it's just, well, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm not trying to be pushy, but if and when you ever decide to list with an agent, I would just love the opportunity to go over all the things that I could do to help you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else as we're heading out? So I didn't see any show of hands of who's going to start a for sale by owner plan.
I'm going to start one today. I'm
awesome.
Going to build my campaign and stuff because I do like working for sale by owners.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's easier than having somebody go and try to have somebody that's not raising their hand sell the house. It's
like I've said, farming is a great thing and I love farming. So please don't take this as a competition between for sale by owner or farming, but that's a long-term plan of people that aren't raising their hand when you can go straight to the people that are. Many, many teams at all 3 of our market centers have an abundance of listings just on for sale by owners. And how do you get buyers? From listings. Guys, from listings. You'll never see me put a pending sign on any of my houses I have listed, and there's a reason. There's 2 reasons. One's a little self-serving. I don't want to keep going out and switching the sign, I'll be honest. But also, secondly, I don't want the calls to stop. Listings used to be the main source of business for real estate agents. 3 years ago, when listings weren't selling as fast as they are, our main source of buyer transactions came from our listings. so I don't put, I got 2 buyer leads from my last listing while it was already under contract, just from the sign call. They drove past and called me from the sign. So that's why we want listings. We want listings because they bring us also buyers. And it gives you a chance to hold it open as many times as you want because it's your listing. Then you don't have to hunt down agents in the office for them. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for so much interaction and so many people showing up.
Thanks,
I can't wait
Gina.
to hear everyone report on it on Monday.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Gina.
you.
Thanks, guys.